The war room of the Xelrith Empire was dark, save for the blue glow of holographic screens. Supreme Commander Vroxus sat at the head of the table, his cold, alien eyes locked onto the projections before him. His subordinates, an elite cadre of Xelrith tacticians and generals, stood at attention, awaiting his orders. The Empire's military dominance had remained unchallenged for centuries, and Vroxus was certain this would remain the case. Another report from the human resistance, Talara, his second-in-command, said, handing him a datapad. The words on the screen were short, but chilling. General Hale. A threat to the Empire. Vroxus chuckled. General Hale, is it? Let them throw their pitiful resistance against us. One insignificant human general will not stop the inevitable. The other officers joined in his laughter, dismissing the Federation's efforts as trivial. Vroxus's mind lingered on the name for only a moment, but he quickly dismissed it. The Federation, after all, was a newly formed group of humans with primitive technologies. They had no real military power. The Xelrith Empire had wiped out civilizations far more powerful than this one. Continue the plan, Vroxus said dismissively. We begin the assault on their homeworld within the week. Nothing will stand in our way. On the other side of the galaxy, General Alexandria Hale stood before a large map of the Federation's war efforts. The room around her hummed with activity, but her mind was focused, laser-sharp. She had heard of the Xelrith Empire's threats before, but she knew they had underestimated humanity. They always did. We can't win this war by playing it safe, Hale said, her voice low but commanding. Her officers, scattered around the room, looked to her with a mix of concern and respect. No one had ever gone head-to-head with the Xelrith and lived to tell the tale, but Alexandria was different. She had no intention of letting her people be wiped out. Lieutenant Klein, her communications officer, hesitated. General, the Xelrith are unlike anything we've faced before. Their fleet, it's enormous. Hale met his gaze without flinching. I'm well aware. But it's not their numbers we're worried about. It's their arrogance. Arrogance? Klein blinked. Yes, she replied, a small smile tugging at her lips. They think we're a joke. They think we're insignificant. That's what makes them dangerous, Klein. Underestimating us will be their downfall. Commander Rhea, the tactical officer, leaned forward. What's your plan, General? Hale's eyes scanned the map before her, tracing lines with her finger. We hit them where it hurts. We strike at their forward bases. We don't go for their main fleets yet, we hit their supply lines, their logistics. We cripple them from the inside. Rhea's eyes widened, but she nodded. A guerrilla strategy. A risky move. Risky? Hale repeated with a sharp edge. This isn't about playing it safe. It's about fighting smart. The Xelrith expect us to fall in line, to fight on their terms. But we'll make them fight on ours. Back in the heart of the Xelrith war room, the mood shifted as the latest intelligence report came in. Talara, standing at attention, read the transmission aloud. General Hale and her forces have taken out one of our forward supply bases near Cygna 6. No survivors. The Federation has lost only a few ships in the attack. A collective silence fell over the room. Vroxus's eyes narrowed, his expression growing cold. Impossible, he muttered. How could they have gotten through? How did they evade detection? It appears they used old human tactics, stealth, misdirection, Talara said. Their ship was old, barely armed, but they made it work. We've underestimated them. Vroxus slammed his fist on the table. I told you to not let them get a foothold. They are nothing more than a nuisance. This will not happen again. Talara's voice remained steady, but there was a hint of unease. We're seeing the first signs of a new kind of warfare, Commander. They're unpredictable, using tactics we haven't seen from them before. The Federation is smaller than we thought, but their resolve is stronger. Vroxus clenched his jaw. This ends now. We'll crush them before they can regroup. Back on the USS Victory, Hale stared at the after-action reports, a quiet smile playing at the corners of her mouth. The operation had gone smoothly, better than expected. The Xelrith had been caught off guard by her unconventional tactics, and the loss of their supply base would cause a ripple effect through their military structure. It was the perfect opening move. Lieutenant Klein approached her, holding a datapad. "General, they're moving their fleets. They know we're coming for them." Hale looked up, her face determined. "Let them. The more they focus on us, the more their defenses will weaken elsewhere." "Are you prepared for a counterattack?" Rhea asked, her voice filled with cautious optimism. Hale nodded. "Absolutely. But we'll need to be one step ahead of them. We'll hit them again before they have time to regroup." The tactical officer paused. "If we keep hitting them like this, we may force their hand. The Xelrith are not used to being outmaneuvered. They won't take this lightly." "Good," Hale said, her voice low but resolute. "I want them angry. I want them to underestimate us. Because when they do, we'll strike again, harder, faster." Meanwhile, in the depths of the Xelrith Empire's command center, Vroxus stood before a holographic projection of the human fleet's movements. The hologram flickered with static as the reports came in, each more damning than the last. The humans were relentless, unpredictable. They weren't fighting like any species Vroxus had ever encountered. "This is more than a nuisance," Vroxus muttered, his voice laced with anger. "This is a war." Talara's voice cut through his thoughts. "They're more resourceful than we gave them credit for, Commander. But they're still a fraction of our size. A few more skirmishes, and they'll collapse under the pressure." Vroxus's eyes burned with determination. "They think they can beat us with trickery. They think they can win with small victories." He sneered. "I'll show them the true meaning of power." Back on the USS Victory, Hale surveyed the stars outside the window of her command center, her mind already moving ahead. The first strike had been successful, but it was just the beginning. The Xelrith Empire had far more power than they knew, but Hale wasn't concerned with that. She was concerned with something far more dangerous, their arrogance. The war had only just begun, and she had no intention of losing it. The hollow hum of the USS Victory's engines reverberated through the ship, a steady reminder of the fragile peace they fought to preserve. General Hale sat alone in the command center, her eyes locked on the expanse of space beyond the viewing windows. Stars, distant and cold, stretched in every direction, an ocean of chaos waiting to swallow the brave or the foolish. And in this sea of uncertainty, Hale knew one thing for sure: the war had only just begun. "General," Klein's voice crackled through the intercom, "we've intercepted another Xelrith transmission. They've mobilized additional forces." Hale didn't flinch. The Xelrith were predictable in their anger. Every time they were hit, they retaliated harder, expecting humanity to collapse under the pressure. It was their arrogance that would ultimately be their downfall. "What's their course of action?" Hale asked, her voice steady. "They're heading to intercept our fleet near Valtor 3, Klein replied. "They've already dispatched a full battle group, led by Admiral Conquerors. He's known for his brutal tactics." "Understood." Hale's gaze hardened. Conquerors was no stranger to bloodshed. A ruthless commander who relished in crushing enemies under his heel. But the Xelrith had one fatal flaw: they never anticipated a fight from someone who wasn't intimidated by them. Hale stood from her chair, her fingers dancing across the console. "Prepare our fleet. Let's give them a fight they won't forget." The Xelrith battle group emerged from the edge of the Valtor 3 system, their ships like a swarm of metallic insects, glistening under the light of distant stars. Conquerors' flagship, the Relentless Fury, took the lead, its obsidian hull cutting through space with chilling purpose. Admiral Conquerors stood on the bridge, a towering figure of calculated aggression. His alien face twisted into a sneer as the human fleet came into view, small, but audacious. "Is this all they can muster?" Conquerors' voice was a low growl, dripping with disdain. He leaned forward, watching the enemy fleet on his screen. "Prepare to engage them immediately. Show these humans what true power looks like." Admiral, his tactical officer, Vera, spoke up cautiously. The human fleet is much more mobile than anticipated. Their ships are not as strong as ours, but their maneuverability. I don't need your excuses, Vera, Karaz interrupted, his voice cold. They are human. They will fall like all the others. Vera's eyes flicked nervously to the screen, but she said nothing. She knew better than to argue with Karaz. The fleet moved in quickly, their weapons charging, eager for the bloodshed they believed was imminent. But something in the way the human ships moved didn't sit right with her. There was an odd precision to their movements, a calculation she didn't expect. On the bridge of the USS Victory, Hale stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the approaching Xelrith fleet on the holographic display. Klein and Rhea flanked her, their expressions tense but focused. The Xelrith were predictable in their approach, heavy ships leading the charge, followed by smaller, faster units that would flank and disrupt. Hale's lips curled into a tight smile. "You know what to do," she said to Rhea, her voice low but commanding. "Yes, General," Rhea replied, her fingers flying over the console. The USS Victory's systems hummed as the crew began to position their ships, taking full advantage of their speed and smaller size. Their strength wasn't in brute force, it was in their ability to hit quickly and then vanish. "Activate the decoy satellites," Hale ordered. "Let's see if they take the bait." The Xelrith fleet advanced, unaware of the trap set in place. As they closed in on the human ships, a sudden flash of light lit up the dark void of space. Decoy satellites, disguised as human warships, sprang to life, creating a false signal that mimicked the appearance of the Federation fleet's main strength. "They're falling for it," Klein murmured, watching the Xelrith fleet divert their course toward the decoys. Hale's eyes were sharp, calculating. She knew that once Karaz's fleet had committed to this false lead, it would be too late to turn back. "Now, Commander Rhea. Engage." With a single command, the human ships shifted into motion, darting from the shadows in a sudden burst of speed, attacking with the kind of precision only a smaller, agile fleet could manage. The relentless Fury was caught off guard, its systems scrambling to readjust as human ships appeared on its flanks. "Target their engines." Hale barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Focus fire on their propulsion units, disrupt their movements." The human fleet's smaller ships danced around the Xelrith forces, launching precise strikes at weak points in the Xelrith ship's armor. While the relentless Fury was focused on the decoys, it didn't see the Victory coming until it was too late. In a matter of seconds, the Victory was on top of it, striking at its engines and weapon systems. Back on the relentless Fury, Karaz's face twisted in fury as his fleet was torn apart. The humans had fought like shadows, slipping in and out of range before the Xelrith could even respond. Karaz's fists clenched, his anger palpable. "Hold formation!" Karaz screamed at his officers. "Do not let them scatter us. We'll bring them down with overwhelming force." But his voice lacked the conviction it once had. His fleet was already falling apart under the weight of the human strategy. The Xelrith were powerful, but the humans were proving they could outthink them, outmaneuver them. "We're losing control," Vera shouted from the tactical station. "Their fire is relentless. We can't keep up with their speed." Karaz gritted his teeth, his pride beginning to erode. "No. This is impossible." But it wasn't impossible. It was simply the result of underestimating an enemy who had nothing to lose. Hale stood on the bridge of the USS Victory, watching as the Xelrith fleet fell into disarray. It had been a calculated risk, a dangerous gambit, but it was paying off. The Xelrith's arrogance had been their weakness, and Hale had exploited it with ruthless efficiency. Her ships were small and outgunned, but they were fast, and they fought smarter. Klein looked to Hale, a mixture of disbelief and admiration in his eyes. "We're doing it. We're actually doing it." Hale didn't smile. "This is just the beginning. We've forced them to retreat, but the war is far from over. The Xelrith will come back stronger, and we'll need to be ready. They won't forget this." Her eyes burned with determination. "Let them think this was just a fluke. We'll keep striking, keep hurting them. And eventually, they'll have no choice but to face the truth. She paused, glancing out at the vastness of space. The universe was indifferent to the war, to the bloodshed. But for humanity, it was a proving ground. We fight on our terms now, Hale said softly, her voice resolute. And we will win. The war had dragged on for months now, and though the Xelrith were far from beaten, the tide had begun to shift. Every time they sent out their vast fleets, General Hale and the Federation forces struck with precision, taking down supply lines, weakening the heart of the Empire's military infrastructure. But every victory came at a cost, and Hale knew the next strike would be the most critical yet. The USS Victory glided through space, its hull scarred from countless engagements, but it was still a symbol of defiance, a beacon of hope. The bridge was quieter than usual, the crew working in disciplined silence, knowing the stakes had never been higher. "General, we've intercepted a message from the Xelrith Command," Lieutenant Klein reported. His voice was strained, but there was an undercurrent of urgency that Hale had come to recognize. Something had changed. "They've mobilized a new fleet, larger than any we've faced before." "Tell me the details," Hale ordered, standing from her chair. She felt the weight of the information settling heavily on her shoulders. They had fought hard, but they were now facing the full force of the Empire's wrath. "It's the Oblivion Fleet, led by Supreme Commander Vroxas himself," Klein continued. "The fleet is unlike anything we've ever encountered. It's made up of nearly 50 warships, including several dreadnoughts." Hale's fingers tightened into a fist. Vroxas. She had heard the name before. He was known for his ruthless strategies, a master tactician who had led the Xelrith to countless victories. But he had never faced humanity before, and Hale was certain that his arrogance would be his downfall. "Set course for the rendezvous point," Hale said, her voice cool and commanding. "We'll meet them head-on. No more delays." On the bridge of the Oblivion, Supreme Commander Vroxas stood in front of the massive holographic display, observing the movements of the human fleet. The map flickered with the positions of the Federation's ships, small but persistent, darting from system to system. "They think they can outmaneuver us forever," Vroxas growled. His alien eyes scanned the projections, his mind already calculating their next move. "Prepare to engage the Federation fleet. This time, there will be no escape." Talara, his ever-loyal second-in-command, stepped forward. "Commander, our fleet is larger, stronger. Their ships are outmatched. We will crush them beneath our boot." Vroxas turned to her, his lips curling into a smirk. "Their resolve is what I fear most, Talara. That is what makes them dangerous. But they will not stand against us for much longer. The Empire will make them bow." The quiet hum of the command deck intensified as the crew began to prepare for battle. The vast fleet of the Oblivion was formidable, its strength overwhelming. Vroxas had never been this confident of victory. The humans would not be able to sustain their guerrilla tactics against the full might of the Xelrith Empire. This time, they would be obliterated. Back on the USS Victory, Hale stood at the helm, staring out at the approaching Xelrith fleet. The stars ahead were like pinpricks in a vast void, but Hale felt their weight pressing on her shoulders. This was the fight that would decide it all. If they lost, everything they had fought for, every battle, every life, would be for nothing. "We're almost in range," Rhea reported, her voice tight. "The Xelrith are coming in fast. They mean to overwhelm us with sheer force." "I know," Hale replied, her eyes narrowing as the fleet of dreadnoughts and warships loomed closer. "But we've fought too hard to give up now. This is our chance to end it." Klein looked up from his console. "General, the Oblivion fleet is bigger than anything we've seen before. We're outgunned and outnumbered." "Not outsmarted," Hale said firmly. "The Xelrith are predictable. They rely on brute force, but we have something they don't, flexibility." She turned to face her officers. "We'll use their size against them. Lead them into a choke point. We can't afford to fight them head-on." Rhea nodded, already setting the course. "Understood. We'll force them into the asteroid field near Xelrith 5. Their ships won't be able to maneuver easily in there. We can get in close, hit their weak spots, and keep them off balance. Exactly, Hale said, her voice filled with determination. They think they can steamroll us, but they don't know how far we've come. We'll make them regret underestimating humanity. The Xelrith fleet approached with terrifying speed, their ships cutting through space like a blade through fabric. The Oblivion loomed large, a colossal war machine that dwarfed the Federation's smaller vessels. Vroxas watched with cold calculation, his fingers hovering over the controls, ready to unleash his forces. Now, he whispered. The Xelrith fleet surged forward, a wave of destruction moving as one, aiming to crush the human ships beneath their weight. They had prepared for this moment, bringing their full strength to bear. Nothing could stop them now. But as the fleet drew closer, something unexpected happened. The human ships didn't retreat. Instead, they scattered, drawing the Xelrith into the dense asteroid field. Vrox's eyes widened. What are they doing? He snarled. They're running into the asteroid field. They'll be destroyed. Talara watched as the Federation fleet, now a series of small, agile ships, darted through the narrow corridors of the asteroid field. The Xelrith warships, massive and cumbersome, struggled to keep up, their weapons firing wildly as they collided with asteroids or tried to avoid being boxed in. They're luring us into the maze, Talara said, her voice grim. We can't follow them through there without risking everything. Vroxas growled in frustration. Then we'll make them come to us. Position our fleet to flank them from all sides. We'll force them into a trap of our own. But as the battle raged on, it was clear that the Xelrith were being outmaneuvered. The Federation's strategy was working. Ships moved swiftly through the asteroid field, striking at the weaker parts of the Xelrith fleet, while avoiding direct confrontation. Small, precise strikes wore the Xelrith down, cutting off their communication and logistics, leaving them vulnerable. On the bridge of the USS Victory, Hale watched the unfolding battle with a steely focus. She could feel the adrenaline pumping through her veins, but there was no room for hesitation now. The Xelrith were falling into the trap, and she needed to ensure they didn't escape. Rhea, it's time, Hale said, her voice low but firm. Lead them toward the center of the asteroid field. We've got them right where we want them. Rhea nodded. Aye, General. With a final, decisive move, the USS Victory and the rest of the Federation fleet surged forward, surrounding the Xelrith. There was no escape now. The Empire's prideful fleet had been caught in the very thing they thought they could avoid, human ingenuity. In a series of explosive clashes, the Oblivion fleet began to falter. Xelrith ships were disabled, and many were destroyed as the human ships swarmed them from every angle. Vroxas stood frozen in disbelief, his hands trembling as he watched his forces crumble. This isn't over, he hissed, though the doubt in his voice was unmistakable. This isn't the end. But on the bridge of the USS Victory, Hale's lips curled into a smile. The Empire had underestimated humanity once again. The war wasn't over, but it was now theirs to win. We're not finished yet, Hale said softly, her eyes burning with the resolve that had carried her this far. We've only just begun.